Pterosaurs are among the most terrifying and mysterious extinct reptiles that have ever inhabited our planet. They had a slender body, a long, sharp beak, and a cold, piercing gaze that instantly sends shivers down your skin. However, millions of years ago, in the Cretaceous period, the sky gave Earth truly the most terrifying and majestic pterosaur in the entire history of life on the planet. It was so frightening that scientists gave it a name in honor of the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. And it frightened not only with its absolutely alien, almost otherworldly appearance, but also with the fact that it was the largest flying creature in the entire history of our planet. This giant was so enormous that, when it stood on the ground, its height easily reached the size of a modern giraffe. And when it fully spread its gigantic wings, the wingspan reached 10 to 11 meters. This is already the size of a small passenger Cessna plane. At the same time, its head alone was almost 2 meters long, and this flying plane also fed on meat. In this video, we will examine in detail why it is almost impossible to hide from Quetzalcoatlus, why it is much more worth fearing when it is on the ground rather than in the sky, why, despite all its colossal size, it turned out to be much more agile and dangerous than you can imagine, and what you should do if you accidentally ended up in the Cretaceous period and suddenly saw a gigantic shadow the size of a plane in the sky, which is slowly and inexorably moving straight toward you. In films, we are used to seeing pterosaurs portrayed as quite large, but still relatively modest in scale. In Jurassic Park, they had a wingspan of 3 to 4 meters. Just the famous episode in the aviary with pterodactyls already looked very creepy and tense, but none of them even came close to the real Quetzalcoatlus. Imagine that you suddenly encounter it in real life. An animal the height of a full-grown giraffe, which at the same time is not at all as harmless and peaceful as a giraffe. Although it was a flying creature, it hunted mostly on the ground. Yes, a huge pterosaur with a 2-meter beak, whose body was covered with pycnofibers, thin fibers very similar to soft fur or down, preferred to hunt on solid ground. It looked completely alien and unlike any other creature of its time. Absolutely extraterrestrial, unearthly appearance. Add to this its very strange, truly frightening gait. They moved completely differently from how we are used to seeing animals move. Quetzalcoatlus leaned on its folded wings and simultaneously moved its right leg and right wing, then its left leg and left wing, a kind of four-legged ambling gait. This unusual gait allowed it to move across land quite quickly and stably. Add to all this an incredibly long, flexible neck that could turn its head almost 180 degrees in any direction. When Quetzalcoatlus was first discovered, scientists believed it was very light, only about 80 kilograms with such gigantic dimensions. However, the most modern scientific data say something completely different. Its real weight was approximately 200 to 250 kilograms. And some paleontologists are sure that it was even a little more. In fact, there are two main species of Quetzalcoatlus, Quetzalcoatlus northropi and Quetzalcoatlus lawsoni. The second species was noticeably smaller and not as terrifying as its huge brother, but it was still larger than an adult human, which in itself is already quite scary. Both of these Quetzalcoatlus had different ecological features, but today we will talk in detail specifically about the largest representative, Quetzalcoatlus northropi. By the way, it was named after the famous American aircraft designer Jack Northrop, as a symbol of its enormous, airplane-like dimensions. But despite all this colossal power, scientists are still actively arguing about whether such a giant could fly at all. There were serious scientific theories according to which an animal weighing more than 200 kilograms with a wingspan of 11 meters physically could not rise into the air. Some studies even provided quite convincing mathematical calculations. However, the latest and most accurate studies show, yes, this gigantic monster could still fly, and moreover, quite confidently and effectively. It would seem that on the one hand, it must have been very difficult for such a titan to make sharp maneuvers in the air, and although it was not as agile and maneuverable as the smaller pterosaurs, it could still accelerate to 130 kilometers per hour in flight. And the most incredible thing, it was capable of maintaining this speed for 7 hours without a single stop. Previously, many scientists confidently claimed that adult Quetzalcoatlus did not fly at all, but the latest research has completely disproved this theory. Now we know for sure, it flew. And if you had met it in the Cretaceous period, the idea of simply running away on the ground would have been extremely stupid. Yes, over a short distance you might have been a little faster, but this giant would easily catch up with you from the air. And running for 7 hours straight at a speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour, even the most prepared and trained people are not capable of that. On the other hand, you have probably already thought, why would I, an ordinary person weighing 60 to 70 kilograms, be of interest to such a huge creature? I am too small for it. It wouldn't even look at me. And this is where you are very much mistaken. Quetzalcoatlus themselves weighed no more than 250 to 300 kilograms. For an animal the height of a giraffe, this is actually very little. That is why they physically could not attack giant predators like T-Rex weighing nearly 9 tons. It would seem that the wingspan of Quetzalcoatlus is only a meter shorter than the length of a T-Rex, but at the same time, it is 30 times lighter. That is exactly why these sky giants hunted not large dinosaurs, but small prey. Dinosaurs and other animals weighing 30 to 40 kilograms. Moreover, they could carry away a piece of meat weighing more than 13 kilograms in their beak in one motion and eat the rest calmly on the ground. And this is where it becomes truly scary. A human is the ideal, convenient, and very appetizing prey for Quetzalcoatlus. Slow, small, without armor, without sharp claws and teeth. The most terrible thing is to realize that you are not a random target for it, but exactly what it needs. The anatomy of this creature is a real nightmare for any potential victim. Its 2-meter beak is not just a tool, but a real biological dagger of incredible power. One strike, and the victim is pierced through. After all, this is not a light chicken beak. This is piercing with a 2-meter beak, and with monstrous force. Its neck was arranged so perfectly that inside the vertebrae there were special bony struts that greatly increased their strength and allowed it to deliver crushing, piercing blows. In addition, some scientists suggest that it may have had something like a throat pouch, like modern pelicans, meaning it could swallow something not too large immediately. The most amazing thing about Quetzalcoatlus was that it could hunt in almost any environment, from open plains to lake shores, even in places where deserts are now. There was nowhere you could feel safe. Its remains were found in the most varied landscapes. It was literally a universal predator. And now, imagine a gigantic pterosaur the size of a small airplane, which could fly at a speed of 130 kilometers per hour and maintain this speed for 7 hours straight. It had soft pycnofibers, similar to down, a very strange and frightening gait, hollow but incredibly strong bones. Because of all these factors, it looked like a real alien the size of a giraffe. It will search for you, pursue you, and stalk you, because you are its ideal prey. And it can do this both on the ground and from the air. It hunted like a real maniac, slowly, methodically, moving silently and carefully, looking out for prey from above or from the side. In the end, if you end up in the Cretaceous period with a time machine, the most terrifying thing you can see is a huge shadow gliding between the trees. At first, you will think that it is an airplane, but in reality, it is the largest flying creature that the sky of Earth has ever produced. The only thing left for you to do in this moment is to pray that it did not come for you. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, remember, thinking is useful.